What up, everybody? Welcome to the first video of my series talking about warframes and each individual frame, how to mod them, types of builds, maybe a little bit of a extra creative inspiration to help you guys out when you're using Rhino or Rhino Prime. First off, I would like to say that this Rhino Prime is heavily modified. I have about 4 formas on it. I do not have any Aurora formas on him yet. However, I have changed his forma polarity. In this video I will be talking about that and attempting to use both Madara and what I switched to, Narumu. Now when you're first looking at a frame, you want to make sure that you're looking at the base stats. These will tell you what type of frame you have and what to build into. Warframe, after all, is a numbers game. So when we look at Rhino, we see that he has a decent armor, but not very high. A pretty low energy pool. A decent, but not very high health, and a slightly higher than average shield. He also has no extra sprint speed, so he's essentially a basic frame. Now before you start to mod a frame, it's also good to look at the frame's abilities and look at each one individually. First, you have Rhino Charge. What type of stats he has? So when you look at this one, you see that there's range, damage, there's a radius, and there's a window. This means that there is range, there is damage from strength, and then there's going to be another range along with a duration. This means that range might be very good on him. Next up, you see Iron Skin. Iron Skin is a special ability. This ability essentially nullifies all of your other health and armor stats, as it makes Rhino essentially invincible up to a certain point. As you can see, he has Fright Armor and a Time Invulnerable. The Fright Armor being affected by your strength. However, Time Invulnerable cannot be improved. It will remain at 3 no matter how much duration you've added. Next up, we have Roar. Roar has a very large duration, a very large range, and a increased damage. This means that you'll need all 3 duration, range, and damage increase to get the maximum effect out of Roar. And last up, you have Rhino Stomp. Rhino Stomp has a damage, a range, and yet again another duration. In my opinion, Rhino is one of those frames that you need every single stat to use all of his abilities properly. You don't want any negative duration, negative range, or negative strength. But of course there are some specialized builds that I'll be showing you guys a little later. The build that I use, and of course this is with 4 formas, is this build. As I mentioned, I believe Rhino has no negative. I have put a lot of strength, a lot of duration, and a very small amount of range. I honestly feel like he has enough range as is, and efficiency can remain as it is also. This means that my Rhino has a much stronger Fright Armor, a much better damage increase, giving you 100%, which is a double damage, a good solid radius, and a very long duration of 1 minute and 7 seconds. Also helps Rhino stomp as he gets 18 seconds of duration, a 27 radius, and a whopping 1,600 damage. Now when we're looking at Rhino, there are also other ways to build him. Another way to build him is as a CC or crowd control frame. In this build, we actually have to sacrifice our strength. We have to sacrifice our strength to gain an incredible amount of range and duration with a little bit of efficiency. This is not a build I recommend using too often, as many other frames have come out recently that make him a little obsolete in the sense of a range build. Nonetheless, this type of build does heavily influence his Rhino Stomp, giving you the ability to stun an area of 62 meters for 15 seconds. Of course, this means that your Iron Skin and your Roar will be quite weak, however they'll last quite long at the same time. And last up, let's look at the augmentations. Rhino has quite a few of these, and they are interesting, so let's look over each one individually. Iron Shrapnel. Iron Shrapnel allows you to recast your Iron Skin, causing it to detonate, which will deal damage to nearby enemies along with knocking them down. This can be a pretty useful ability if you are low on Iron Skin and worry that you could be killed by an enemy once it has fallen off. However, there is a bit of a downside to this, and the downside is that you can achieve the same thing by simply walking off the map. By walking off the map, you will immediately lose your Iron Skin and will be given a chance to recast it before you are shot again. The only thing you'll be missing is the damage, which is up to you. However, remember that each augment will take up at least one of your 8 slots, as these augments are not Xmas. Next up, we have Ironclad Charge. Now, I've personally never used this one, and I've never seen anybody use this one, but you can make some pretty creative builds with this. Now, each enemy hit increases Rhino's armor rating by 50% for 10 seconds. Now, this will affect your charge ability, which is Rhino's first ability. This is an ability people don't typically use as it doesn't do very much. This is one you can place on if you feel that Iron Skin is not powerful enough on its own. However, I do not suggest using this too often. The third augment is Piercing Roar. Piercing Roar will cause enemies within 25 meters to suffer from a puncture proc. This will lower the damage output of the enemies, but it will do very little else. Again, it is a mod that will take up one of your 8 slots, and if you feel the need to use it, you can. However, again, this is not one that I suggest using too often. And lastly, Reinforcing Stomp. Reinforcing Stomp will allow you to regain Iron Skin health per enemy hit. This means that you'll want to use this on a very rangy build and will allow you to keep on fighting without having to recast your Iron Skin. This one is very good for all the tanks out there who do not like to have to stop, as Iron Skin does force a user to stop for a couple seconds, interrupting any other combos. Thank you everybody for making it to the end of this video. This was my first video, so make sure to let me know if you liked it. My next video, I'll pick a frame based on this video's comments, so make sure to leave a comment with a frame you think I should do next.